All right, thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming in today. My name is Subhash Sharma. I'm the speaker for the day. The reason for our gathering is, again, as the invite was rolled out for a quick discussion and about the cloud adoption journey and tenants and subscription. So if I could do justice in an hour, all right, in a nutshell, I'm gonna walk you through over the cloud adoption journey, how we can use the inbuilt migration tools to assess the environment and see what site recovery and the platform and service has to offer. So, guys, in the middle of the webinar, if you have any questions or suggestion, I would request you to type in the chat box and park it there. At the end of this session, I will address them all. And if any of the topic has interested to you right away and needs more information about it, I'll be happy to engage with you at the end of the session or post the session on the availability. So with that being said, let's progress further to see what the day has to offer. The reason why we are here today is to talk about the Azure cloud. We all know the Azure cloud is a Microsoft cloud-based solution offering the compute, storage, network services over the internet for the business to render the services. The most important agenda of the discussion is why we are adopting this modernized solution today. For many good reasons, because the industry has shifted from a conventional uh, functionality of business to a traditional environment where everybody is actually working from home today. But that's just not the vital reason. There are a lot many factors that we need to consider why this cloud is essential for the business. The first thing today we're going to talk about is nothing but the total cost of ownership in assessing the environment. When I say the total cost of ownership, guys, there are various ways. First thing that we need to know about this cloud. What are the solution? How this solution will be benefited to the business and the end user community? And what are the ways we can leverage the services to ensure that the business goals are met? And that's what we will be covering as we progress. We know that the Azure is a cloud-based solution offering compute, storage, networking over the internet. The benefit of optimizing, or rather, I would say, adopting, Azure solution over the other cloud vendors are more beneficial. When I say they are more beneficial, we all know how Microsoft ecosystem works, right? It's pretty user friendly when it comes to the operating system. It's pretty user friendly to work with files and folders in the Microsoft environment. I'm sure we all know that this cloud offering, right, has various solutions like infrastructure as service, platform as service, software as service. The benefit of Azure cloud when it comes to the adoption is you have various ways to save on the cost. All right, the reliability, the resilience, and the availability of the solution has span across 54 region and across 184 countries. The This is the cost effective solution available in the market for many good reasons. First thing first, let's see what cloud is all about. Cloud is actually a consumption based model. When I say it's a consumption based model, you pay for what you use and you don't proactively pay for the services, and maybe you're not consuming it altogether. Guys, in a traditional environment, if you have to host an application or publish a solution, what you do, the first thing that you do is you assess the vendor, you assess the solution, you do the math on your investment and then gauge what will be the return on investment. So the amount of time that you invest, the amount of efforts that you invest on the solution that may be good, maybe not been optimized as you scale, that's a complete different strategy with cloud. With cloud, it is purely a consumption based model. Pay as you go is the strategy that saves you money along with reserve instance. When I say reserve instance, what I mean by reserve instance, let me give you a quick example, right? If you know today that your workload will suffice on an 8 gig of RAM, that you can help to save money for the business by reserving that compute. By reserving that compute, you actually say, Mr. Microsoft, you reserve this instance for our business, for our application for a year that will be used by your application. So with your need, Microsoft actually helps you to reserve that instance and give you more discount on that part of the story. Along with that, you have Azure Hybrid Benefit. What is Azure Hybrid Benefit? A benefit that can help you save more money over the licensing. With Azure Hybrid Benefit, the existing customers can redeem their license only validated if they were procured with software assurance. As we progress with this cloud-based solution, we know that it's pretty vital for the business to adopt the journey. We also need to understand how imperative it is for our workloads to be migrated in the Azure cloud. Azure cloud has to offer solutions in infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, it purely talks about the virtual machine. It is the best destination for Windows Server and SQL Server. As I mentioned, the ecosystem of the Microsoft is pretty simple, right? It works seamlessly along with different applications that are interdependent. Now, what is the need of the migration? When I say what is the need of the migration, here we need to actually understand the various goals of business that actually comes along from the top hierarchy. Okay, the first thing is the solution that the Microsoft has to offer has a pretty good service level of agreement. You don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure. When I say you don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure, with different offerings, right? Let me just give you a quick example. For an application developer, right, who is publishing an app, he just have to focus on his efficiency. He doesn't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure on how or what server is the right a compute that he would need to have. He can directly enroll for an account over the portal, buy a subscription. Once that is in place, activate the web hosting plan and let the Microsoft take care of everything. The app developer just have to worry about his own efficiency. That's the beauty when it comes to managed instance or managed solution, and then that has given the leverage to the business to think about this migration. It is not only about publishing the app or hosting an app over the Azure cloud as platform as service. You can still have a lot of benefits available with this cloud. As I mentioned earlier, when it comes to publishing an app, the developer doesn't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure or the right amount of compute that the app would need. You just have to worry about his own development and scalability of the app itself. With Azure, there are ways you can achieve this goal of the business by selecting the right solution. So it is not only limited to a database, it is not only limited to a virtual machine, it's actually the boatload of services that the Microsoft has to offer. Maybe the operating system itself, maybe for a Linux environment, or maybe the virtualization for that fact. When we talk about the virtualization at this stage right now, let me just talk about Windows Virtual Desktop, a solution that actually gives you a scalable environment at ease where you can publish your own app to the end user community. That's the desktop as service. That is what Microsoft's solution is all about when it comes to the virtualization environment. I'm pretty keen on the WVD for now, for the reason because as we all are working from home, right, the business has worried about its data integrity from long time, and that solution has achieved the business goal in pretty much the right way as anticipated. As I mentioned earlier, the solution that the Microsoft has to offer are in various ways, like virtual machine. If I were if okay, let me just put it this way. Right this moment, if I'm thinking about migrating my solution, when I say solution, I mean the workload to the cloud. What is the first thing that comes to my mind? Is my server compatible to be migrated in the cloud? Yes, it is. How about the Linux machine that I have in my data center? Of course, you can actually do that. What about the virtual solution like Citrix or the VMware? Yes, absolutely. You can do that because we have all that services available over the cloud. Apps in a blink of eye, create an account. I bet you in 30 minutes you will be up and running and your app is published over the web. That's the beauty of the platform as service. You don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure. Focus on what you are doing. You don't have to worry about the infrastructure. That's all managed by Microsoft. And that's where we emphasize on the shared responsibility model. When I say we need to worry about the shared responsibility model, it purely talks about the responsibility of an administrator as a person and the responsibility of the Microsoft or the responsibility of the customer. In a platform as service solution, the customer or the administrator has to only worry about the data and the access. All the maintenance, all the hardware upgrade, degrade, scalability has to manage by Microsoft. It is not only restricted to the platform, it is also has emphasizes on the database that is there in our environment. For example, if you were to migrate your on-prem database to the Azure cloud, two ways to do that. The fastest way is to procure the Azure SQL service. That's the database that purely the platform as service. Connect, let the managed instance do the migration for you. That's we're going to cover in the next slide. But however, that's what I'm saying. The beauty of this inbuilt tools is that in a blink of eye, the migration happens. You just have to worry about your own efficiency. With the hybrid, as I mentioned earlier, you don't have to worry about the solutions that are hosted over your own beefy server using VMware or Citrix. You have the Azure VMware solutions in place that can do the migration for you for your existing virtualized environment. As we move to the cloud, right? We know that we have when we talk about moving, we know our back is covered by Microsoft. Our back is covered by the partners who are doing business with Microsoft. Our back is covered by the strategists like us who are discussing about how this goal can be achieved. Assessing your environment with the existing Azure migration tool is the best way, the best practice the business can adopt and move to the cloud. When we say the business can adopt and move to the cloud, you don't have to move the entire workload today, right? I'm not saying to move the entire workload today. Yes, you can do. How about the business do the justice to their own workload by shifting them in parts? Yeah, that's where the customer or we have a second thought in our mind. Is my app compatible with the cloud solution? Is my customer happy to be over the cloud? With all these thoughts in your mind, I have a big affirmation. Yes, you are. It's a win situation for the business, for the customer, and for the community with the technology that we are in today. The best way to do this is to engage with the partner, with the business, that is the customer, and advise them the right solution. For somebody who is into web development or some business who is into, you know, maybe if I could just talk about the independent software vendors, who are pretty master in their own development of business, the best way for them to adopt the cloud is maybe the platform as service or maybe the uh, infrastructure as service. But let's see what this app service plan or the platform as service, which is again app service plan is a part of the platform as service. What is? there in this service plan for the platform as service community. With this, first thing, you're not worried about the server, you're only focused on your efficiency. You can, in a blink of eye, publish the app right away. Scale at ease. Scalability is something that you should focus on your app itself. Okay. For example, we all know it's purely a consumption-based model. You don't have to worry about the scalability, the fault tolerance, or the availability of the business. Scale up, scale out. When I talk about scale up, I'm actually emphasizing onto the module by saying this, that I'm adding more RAM to my virtual machine, or I'm scaling up vertically. When I say scale out, I'm adding more instance to my workload. A quick example that I could talk about here is, we've seen the giants publishing a big giant sale. How is the environment ready? It's not ready in a day or two. It's a practice that they have coming up, with all this technology in place, that one can scale up whenever you want to, scale out as the business demand is, or whenever there is a need of adding more resources. Scaling up, scaling out is at ease. That's all done in the backend. Logic apps are as good as the task scheduler that we are aware of on an on-prem environment. Let me put it this way. On an on-prem server, if I need to run an activity, that will report me at XYZ hour of the day that my activity that I had to perform was done successfully. How did it work? I created a script, added to the task scheduler, it ran at the time that I wanted to, and give me the result. That's what you're doing with Logic Apps. A cloud service used to schedule, automate, orchestrate tasks, business process, and workflows. The Logic Apps does the job for you. You don't have to worry about your own efficiency there. Execute something that you want to actually be done at the time, and let that event be triggered on your own execution. That helps you save time. That helps you to be engaged on another activity and work at ease. That's the beauty of this Logic app and the platform as service solution. Now let us see why this discussion of migration and adoption of uh, the cloud is vital, and what are the ways we can do that. All right. For somebody thinking at the back of the mind now that I know what this solution is all about, how should be the question of this hour now, to know how I can do that. There are ways, there are strategies that the business can achieve to implement the right solution. For an example, if I were to move a file server right away as I talk with you, what I'm going to do, just I would have a account created. That's an all assumption that everything is there in backend, all right? I can just lift and shift and Rankify, migrate my file server to the cloud. That's the rehost. That's kind of a lift and shift. Refactor, you're giving a thought whether that app should be amended or some consideration has to be done. Re-architect is something as you move to the cloud, or there is some changes to be done in an environment. That's re-architecting of the application itself or the workload. Replace, if I can give you a best example of replace, is your own Office Exchange account, maybe your Exchange Online plan, or maybe your M365 account. That's your modern workspace. That's the best example. You're not hosting your Exchange online. I'm so sorry, you're on-prem. You're hosting your Exchange services over the Microsoft Cloud, and that's delivering your mailbox services. That's delivering your data availability group over the internet. You're not worried about maintaining the Exchange on-prem. That's the best example of software as service. What are the common Azure migration projects that one can think of? First thing first, Windows Server, SQL Server, How about your application? Yes, everything is available and that can be moved into the cloud. How about the Linux machine? Absolutely yes. SAP HANA? Yeah, absolutely. Your ERP solutions are also readily available to be migrated. When I say readily available to be migrated, but I mean purely that we have tools that can actually assess your environment that can give you a best practice, best guideline to migrate your ERP workload as well. The pattern, as I mentioned earlier, how we will be strategizing this migration. For an example, I have a database on-prem that needs to be migrated. I can think of infrastructure as solution. I can also think of platform as service. Guys, understand one thing here. Your one goal can be achieved various ways. However, we spoke about something called as shared responsibility model. All right. If I'm spinning up a VM, all the maintenance, fault tolerance, patching, all the stuff is managed by Microsoft. When I talk about platform as service, it's all managed by uh, Microsoft again. You're just only responsible for the data and access. For somebody who needs to have the control over the database itself, or somebody who wants to have full control, when I say tweaking or amending the database itself, that's where the consideration comes into the picture. You have the line of business app, that's your app or your server to be migrated over to the cloud. But what is the right solution? Maybe the infrastructure as service, maybe the platform as service. It's all depend on who and how, what type of control you would need to have over the technology. That's where you draw a thin line. For an example, somebody thinking of publishing a website right away, platform as service, go for it. How about or if I were in your position, I may want to test it out over the infrastructure as service. Let me manage the database, let me manage my own machine, and let me manage the way I want to have the communication been published to my customers. Yeah, I can do both the ways. Who has to take the decision? Maybe the business. Why business? Because the administration part of the technology has to be owned by somebody. That's where this concern comes into the place, how this workload will be migrated and what is the right solution. When we talk about migrating the workloads or Azure Cloud Migration benefits, we all know the benefits of migration. The first thing, it's purely consumption-based model, guys. The second best part to save more money is by applying reservation onto our compute, storage, or network for the fact. However, the best practice always is to sign up with the pay-as-you-go model and then move on to the reservation. You don't have to worry about the availability of the business because, as I mentioned earlier, it has span across 54 regions, with independent power cooling, networking, compute, and storage span across 184 countries. The availability of the business has come to the closest proximity of your own customer. Migration, as we know, we have inbuilt tools that can assess the workload of our own business that can actually help us to migrate our workloads. Let us see what is uh, there available as a readily inbuilt services. First thing, assess, migrate, optimize. What are these words for me? Yeah, this is where I actually want to spend some time. All right. When I say I really want to spend some time, guys, the end user community may be reluctant for this movement today, or maybe curious enough to get into the cloud. The engagement is very important. The assessment of the on-prem environment is very important. There are ways you can do the assessment using the Azure migration tool, using the data migration assistant, using the SQL Server migration assistance. Once this practice of the assessment is completed, right? What is the next stage? Move into the cloud? How and when and what part? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Let me put it this way. For somebody who wants to migrate the workload now, this is a win situation because I'm going to tell you the best way to do it. First thing first, get up and create a tenant that gives you an account over the portal. Apply for the subscription. Maybe you know that when you enroll an account with Azure Cloud, you get a $200 credit. Test your workload. You have time. You have ample amount of time to test the workload. Once you have the satisfactory closure, move into a DevOps platform in kind of a UAT environment. Test again. See the behavior of the consumption. Check the pattern of your user, how they're adopting this modern solution. Once you are there, maybe you can think about migrating your non-critical workloads to the cloud. Once you have tasted the solution, once you have checked the pattern of consumption, you pretty much know now that the capital expenditure model, the traditional environment of an on-prem technology has, uh, kind of, uh, I would say, a challenging situation to forecast the budget. First thing on a traditional environment is you pay proactively. If I draw a difference right away over the cloud, it's a consumption-based model. First thing that I know. The second thing, I'm paying for what I'm using. I'm not buying the hardware and keeping it in my office. That will consume my real estate. That will actually, be built for my own power, electricity, and the maintenance of it over the cloud. That's all done by Microsoft. And when what are we thinking now? The backup, the security, guys, the length and breadth when it comes to the securing the environment of the Microsoft, it's pretty much streamlined. All right. However, we need to select the right solution and ensure what is the best tool or the way that we can actually have the goal achieved. Once you are in kind of a satisfactory thought, yeah, my solution, that's my app, which is good to be published over the cloud as platform as service, is perfect. I know this pay as you go is actually helping me a lot. All right, what do? I have the inbuilt tools like Azure Advisor. I have the cost management that talks about my billing. I have the advisory, that's the health management and tools available in the account. With that tool in place, you can optimize the environment. Be very free for your backup because your backup can be done onto another region. If I tell you for any good reason, all right, in an event of the failure of your on-prem environment, what are you doing with the business? Your business goes down. The customers are calling the support and yelling onto your uh, beautiful service desk guys who has no clue what has gone down. Your business is halted. Spinning up a server for your DR solution, that's your disaster recovery over the cloud, can be done in Ring of Fire. If I can tell you the number, yeah, 10 minutes, you have your server up and running. Your customers are happy. Did the customer had a disappointment? Maybe yes, for some time. Maybe, if your business can actually afford some amount of downtime, you can actually have your passive DR in place and have a win situation. To summarize what we just spoke about in the cloud migration strategies, Rehost, picking up from my left hand, putting onto the right table, infrastructure as service. That reduce your capital expenditure, free up your current real estate. A quick cloud ROI, that's nothing but return on your investment because you're paying later, using the services first, capital expenditure, investing the money first. Maybe you're gonna use the compute, maybe gonna fully optimize. I wouldn't say fully optimized. Maybe you're gonna fully consume what you have paid for. Maybe, yeah. Over the cloud, the pattern is monitored, and that's where you can, at the end of the day, can actually conclude, yeah, I may have not conclude what I procure on the on-prem environment. However, In the cloud, you have the choice. Something is not being used, put it off, save money. That's the beauty, all done by you, right? You don't have to worry about putting up a ticket to your service desk and let them take over your need. No, that's all the beauty of the cloud. It's kind of a graphical user interface management for your portal that helps you to do the job at ease. When we talk about adopting this cloud based solution, or we talk about the modern workplace or the modern workspace, right? I mean purely that we need to actually have some governance in place, maybe some sort of a framework in my mind, how I will be starting off this journey, or well, what is the first thing that I need to do? Am I calling up an expert and taking his advice? What is the good deal that I need to know before I could get onto this cloud journey? Migration approach. Is that a very thing for me? Migration tool. Am I paying more for an additional resource? Offers. I may save money. Partners. Oh yeah, I can actually rely on a Microsoft partner who can do the job for me and let me be very free. Training education. Yes, we are here to educate our end user community. There are ways that we could do. The session right now is an awareness of the solution approach. Who am I approaching? You're approaching the right person who can actually do the job for you. Yeah, this link that I have on the deck now, yeah, azure.com/migration will actually talk about the success stories or the ways that you can do. At the same time, there's a detailed walkthrough of the different scenarios that one can read and see. That again depends on the workload. Let me give you a quick example when I talk about the migration and depending on the workload, because one size fits all is not all about the cloud-based offering. You just can't have one policy for everybody, one solution for all the workload. For example, if I'm thinking about migrating my file server to the cloud or decommissioning something on an on-prem environment, I can either think about blob storage. I can actually have thinking about maybe I can give a thought over the file share itself. We are all aware of the distributed file system on a native on-prem environment that actually do the network share. The drive is mapped to our user computer, and that's how the user will be able to save retrieve file over to a physical box. That's where all your data are central repositories. With cloud, you can do the same. Maybe with blob storage, maybe with the file share that do the job for you. But over here, over the cloud, spinning up the server is quickly. You don't have to worry about the policy and the management. Just with a click, run command, and the drive is mapped onto the customer drive or to the end user drive. That's the beauty of migrating the solution or migrating the workload over to the cloud. In wink of eye, at ease. The best practice example, what I'm talking about. A best practice example is nothing but by building a case study, by engaging the customer community with the right approach, gathering the inventory, assessing the inventory over the pricing calculator, putting it up in a nutshell by doing some math with the total cost of ownership calculator. We spoke at the beginning, we saw TCO, but we did not speak about it. And that's where I want to talk a little bit about the TCO now. For somebody, all right, for a business, maybe a design solution company planning to move to the cloud, because a design company or an architect, all right, their workloads, when I say workload, I mean files are pretty resource hungry. All right. When I say resource hungry, they eat up the memory, they eat up the processor a lot. Somebody in that business thinking of migrating or buying up or putting up their business in a highly available environment, that will cost them more money because they need to procure the asset first, put up more. overheads, maintenance, and whatnot, guys? Tell me, and then I'll tell you that's a pretty daunting task. Okay, I know that the business is into uh, design solution. I know that they require a lot of resource-hungry work. I mean, solution. What am I doing now? I'm going to the cloud and doing math using the Azure pricing calculator. What is the best server for this solution? First thing that I know, yeah, I need something over the cloud that will give me more compute. Okay, so I have a memory optimized virtual machine for my solution. Fine, I know that. Two step down. The third thing that comes into my mind, am I saving by moving into the cloud, or is it really good to procure the asset? Okay, I can assess the same by going on to the azure.com/TCO. Do the math. The TCO calculator will talk about the real estate, will talk about the maintenance, will talk about the overheads, or will talk about how, by all means, you are saving money or you are investing more money that you may consume or you may underutilize or overutilize. That will give us a thought. But at this stage, you are not moved to the cloud. However, you know that you have achieved 75% of your business goal by giving a thought, and this few best practice, three best practice has given you an ample amount of confidence to move to the next ladder. And that is nothing but thinking of moving your solution to the migration, or thinking of migrating your workload to the cloud. And then comes into the picture, what is coming into the picture? The price, the benefits. And what are they? Pay as you go, pay for what you're using, reserving the instance, maybe for a year or three, save more money on your compute. Licensing part, Azure Hybrid benefit, saving you more money in the Microsoft eco-friendly system or the environment for that fact. Once you are there in the cloud, you have the governance in place. By all means, the inbuilt tools or services will help you optimize security with the cloud. As I mentioned earlier, can be optimized as and when you see the pattern for a native solution. Okay, if somebody wants to have an encrypted communication between two different sites, let me put it this way. Today we all are working from home. All right, for a business who is still a decade behind or 2 decades behind, and in a native on-prem environment, for somebody to deploy this encrypted solution, well, what are they thinking about? Putting up a VPN, putting up an express solution, maybe through an MPLS. They have to invest time on identifying the right amount of solution. With the cloud, you have the VPN in place. With the cloud, you have express route in place that lets you bridge the gap and connects from an on-prem to the cloud directly. Resiliency, you have the high availability depending on the workload. You just don't have to spend on more money by putting up all the resources on a physical environment. With cloud, you have DR solution in place. Monitoring is there, as I mentioned about the advisor, as I mentioned about the inbuilt management tool that helps you optimize the cloud. Move the workload in the right way with the best practice method. You have your assessment for your VMware, you have your assessment for your Windows-based solution. Free built-in services gives you an ample amount of thought. What is the right method and the best practice that you can adopt to move your workload? Let us give a thought over the Azure Site Recovery, because I know we have spoken about the solution, but how about the backup? How about ensuring that the business, when I say business, our workload, when I say workload, I mean the application is available to our end user community. With Azure Site Recovery in place, I can have my two major components to the Azure Site Recovery is the Azure Backup. The second thing is the Azure Vault. What are they? The Vault name is self-explanatory. It is reserving or protecting some amount of element or something that is to be protected over the cloud in an event of a failure. That protected element or the protected database or the protected object itself will be utilized to ensure that the business is available. And let's see how. Let me give you a quick example. Uh, Azure Site Recovery help you set up the source and the target environment. Let me give you a quick example when we talk about the Azure Site Recovery at this right moment. Okay, I don't want you guys to assume it, but let me just put it this way: you have an on-prem environment, your file server. You have spun up a VM over the cloud, and you know that you are doing a backup of your on-prem file server to the Azure cloud by using this method called as Azure Backup. Okay, that's doing the replication. The question is for somebody who is geek at this moment, knowing how this will be done. Okay, for such geeks, the answer is you have something called as ASR configuration utility or the server for this right moment deployed in the environment of the on-prem. That server will do the configuration and thus will take care of the replication. In the event of the failure, the on-prem goes down, right? Someone in the cloud who has the right solution in place will activate the solution manually, spin the server for the business. If I remember the number right, I had tested this with my own personal experience and observation. I was able to spin on the server in the cloud in 10 minutes. Yes, in 10 minutes, I was able to do it. And I had that solution up and running. How was it? How this was done? Okay, let me tell you. The on-prem server, its VHD, all right, was backed up onto the Vault, and the Vault VHD was spun up over the cloud. In a nutshell, with the zero app data loss, again, that all depends on the business uh, need as to how much amount of downtime the business can afford. You know, now when we talk about the availability of the business, let me just actually quickly talk about the service level agreement or the highly available environment or the disaster as service as or the recovery. Now, with VM, with virtual machine, we all know the Azure has the various ways to ensure that the business is up and running. Maybe a highly available environment with an active mode. That's all drilling down to what the business need. That's all defined in your business continuity plan with disaster recovery. It is not a fire drill that the employees are walking out of your office premises and just waiting up for somebody to whistle up and then come back to the office. It's all about thinking and knowing what is in place. The availability set. What is availability set? It actually ensure that how your fault tolerance or your patch management will be taken care of by the Microsoft. The availability zone, it's nothing but a physical independent data centers with their own compute network storage and power. And then there is the regions pairing up with their correspondence. When I say there are regions pairing up with the correspondence, that is east meeting up south or the west meeting up the north. All right, so that's where Azure has designed the availability of the business in such a beautiful fashion or the way where you can actually expect the least amount of downtime. All right, the availability of the business has come to so close to the end user community where they can just be very free of the business when it comes to the availability. We spoke about the availability. We just spoke about the Azure Active, the Azure Site Recovery, and spinning up the server in an event of a failure. We actually spoke, but on this slide itself, or at this moment itself, I just want you guys to know one thing pretty important. I'm sure by now most of you would know. All right. With the Azure cloud, or when the Azure Site Recovery in place, we know that the two important aspect is the Azure backup and Vault itself. Guys, in a virtual environment over the cloud-based solution, one thing that you need to know now is uh, moving from the cloud is possible. However, failing back from the cloud, from a virtual environment to a physical box is not allowed. All right, you cannot fail back from a virtual environment in the Azure, that's a VM itself, to a physical box, to returning to the same infrastructure or to the same physical environment. You will have to fail back over to your cloud-based, or rather a virtual environment, that's your VMware or your Hyper-V, and then you can have your reinstation of your solution. So that's one thing. Also, you can back up your on-prem environment, server, on-prem files, and on-prem database to the Azure solution. Also, you can actually back up your Azure VM to the Azure region. That's pairing of the west to the east or north to the south. The key capabilities of this solution, you just don't have to worry about the wariness. When I say you don't have to worry about the wariness, I mean you don't have to panic when in the event of the failure. You know that you can test your solutions over the cloud in the event of a failure. In the event of failure, you just have to on a click of a button, your business is available. You don't have to go to some of the third-party tool or some of the maybe a dashboard to see what has went wrong. It's all there in the Azure cloud. From a single point of management, you can ensure your BCP goal is achieved. No impact drills. We spoke, it's just not a kind of a fire drill that you're actually walking out of the facility, coming back into the facility and ensuring that the goal was met. With cloud, you can test the DR solution, and then the same can be achieved with the various ways. you know a centralized monitoring and alerting. When I say centralized monitoring and alerting, because that's there with an inbuilt feature that gives an alarm once the test was done completely to the satisfactory closure. Disaster recovery for the infrastructure as service workloads. We pretty much covered that when we spoke about you know the business goal to be met as per the business compliance plan. It is a drill that you can perform with no production downtime. Decide when you want to fail over your application, restore applications to the primary data center once the business is up and running on the ground. When I say on the ground, I mean your on-prem environment. This is what I want to talk about. And this is one of my favorite thing that I actually get very fascinated when I talk about the multi-region DR, or when I talk about high availability of the solution with Azure Cloud. Active for somebody who is geek at this moment knows what active is, or active passive DR. All right. This is not a rocket science. This is simple. This is pretty much simple. Let me just walk you through. All right. I have the primary region. I have the secondary region. I have virtual network peering. I have the traffic manager, whatnot. I have everything, maybe most of it, when it comes to the high availability of the business or the disaster recovery. For example, my on-prem is connected to my primary region. I have the traffic manager doing load balancing for uh, the traffic incoming to the virtual environment. I have this Azure Active Directory that is actually authenticating my cloud-based identities, or the identities that are there in my database. My on-prem is being load balanced into the primary. I have my business available. What if, for any good reason, the primary goes down? I have the business still running from my primary region. Maybe somebody who wants to have kind of a mission critical application, in the environment. Oh yeah, I can achieve the goal by spinning up the servers in secondary region, and I have the virtual network peering in place. Asynchronous replication ensure that the data is replicated. Your RPO goals, the RTO matrix defines the availability of the database. That can also ensure that for somebody, all right, maybe for an architect of the application, or maybe the cloud solution architect designing the workload availability over the cloud, there are ways you can do that. For somebody, an application developer with all the help and the benefits of the microservices has segregated the application workload onto another level, maybe on the front end level. On the back end engine, you have the database getting connected from the front end server. For any good reason, your web tier on one machine. One thing, guys, to be noted here, the workloads onto all the VMware, or I'm so sorry, onto the virtual machine has to be replicated. That's the primary thing to achieve this uh, goal of load balancing the application. The Azure Site Recovery does the job pretty much as I spoke about it. The reason I want to lay emphasis on this topology right now, the previous was the environment built with the n-tier mode. When I say n-tier, the architect of the application was designed in such a manner that it was distributed onto the different aspects, or I would say into different breakups. The front ending was done by the front end server itself. The back end data task was done on by some different servers. That was all not dumped onto one single machine, and that's where it was in highly available environment, an active disaster recovery plan. However, for some business who doesn't want to spend too much onto the physical side and still want to achieve the business goal by ensuring their workloads are available, yes, the site recovery vault can do the job for you by vaulting your data into the vault itself and spinning up the resources when the business need. However, a catch to it, the business should also understand the amount of downtime they can expect by implementing the DR as solution and in a passive DR mode. Guys, with this, all right, I can only think by saying this, I've done justice by covering all this important topic in a stipulated time frame. For now, the session is all yours for all the questions to be put up on the chat box, and I'll be happy to address them, all of them right away. If not, then I'm sure we can engage it onto some of the different time on the availability and all your concern, or maybe someone want a deep dive. Yeah, we can do the practical demonstration as well. Chanakya and Amit, back to you guys. If we have any questions, I'm happy to answer them right away.
Thank you,
Let's
Subhash.
see.
Thank you for the lovely session.
Hmm.
Guys, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A tab on the left-hand side. Subhash, I think we'll wait for 2 more minutes if in case
Absolutely.
anyone has any questions.
Right. My direct email address is on the deck. That's my first name, subhash.sharma@cloudrescues.com. Our support email address is support@cloudrescues.com. All questions welcome. All right. Let me just go back to the Q&A and see what is there that I need to answer. Looks to me that we are clean and green and good to conclude, but let's wait for a couple of more minutes and see if our beautiful audience has any questions. Mr. Raina, do you have to address to the audience? Please come in.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Subhash. Thank you. It was a really nice session. And dear for partners, if you have any question, if you want to put forward, please feel free to put in the chat window. And if you still want to have one more, like if you need to have a session where you want to discuss any particular situation with your existing customer requirement, You also can ping us back. We can definitely get in touch with one-to-one and can discuss your particular customer requirement.
All right, wake up, audience. It seems like this was kind of an overload for you today, but I'm sure you have gained a lot of information. I thank you for coming in, and I'm pretty much sure this was informative. Should you have any further engagement to be done in person with Amit personally, we are open for discussion. Please do come up with all suggestion questions, and I think Amit, we are good to conclude. Chanakya?
Yes, Subhash, I think we're good to conclude. I would just like to thank you everyone for joining in and taking the time of joining the session. Thank you, Subhash. Thank you, Amit, for joining the session today. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. Have a good day. Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a nice day.